And so as you can see, this is a little cube of death. And today I'm going to be learning about how to build one. We first start by making a star of conveyors. We then get some small hydrogen tanks. We then need a battery and a gyro for our basic flight controls. And we then, for our thrusters, we get one going in each direction. And we also want to have one back thruster as well. I'm going to want at least 2 thrusters on the back. I'm going to put 3 here. And the next step is to get a small connector here, followed by a merge block and then a event block. Next, we need to set up the event block. So with this, we will go and find it here, event controller. And we want the event to be block added or removed. So when the block is built, we want it to take the connector and lock it to the mothership after being built so that fuel can flow into our torpedo. We then want to go find our hydrogen tanks and we'll put them as a group. And we'll set stockpile to on. Next, we need to add the ship AI to our torpedo. So first we need the flight block. You can see there it says rear panel on the back. You see left there, F for forward. We want to make sure that that F is facing the front of the torpedo when we put that down. And then we also need the offensive AI block, which can be facing in any direction. Next, we'll need to configure our AI. So first we'll go to the control panel. We'll go find the flight AI. And we will turn the block off, the AI behavior off. And we will take our speed limit and increase that to the maximum, 100. Then for the offensive AI, we can find here, we want to toggle the block off, turn the AI behavior off, we'll turn this on later. Target priority, we want the largest things we can find. We want the target search interval to be as low as possible. And we want it to target power systems because they will be in the middle of the enemy ship, which means your torpedo will be more likely to connect. And then we want to tell it to intercept, and we'll also give it target prediction as well. Next, we'll set up the warhead function. So first we will need a sensor to detect when the enemy ship is close. It's very important that this sensor faces backwards. And then next we'll need one timer block, and then we will need 2 warheads at the front of our ship. Next, we need to configure the warheads. So we'll go find those. Just double check that they are not armed. We don't want them exploding on our ship. And we're going to put those into a group, torpedo warheads. Next, we'll sort out the timer block for our warheads. So we'll go find the timer block, give it a good name, warhead arm timer block. And we want to set the delay to 1, that will be triggering straight away. Set up actions. The first action will be to arm the warheads so that they will explode on impact. And the second action will be to turn off the sensor because we don't want it to trigger multiple times, flicking the warheads on, off, on, off, on, off. And finally, we're going to set up the sensor itself. There's a lot of options to go through here. We're going to turn off proximity alert, turn off detect players. We only want it to detect small ships, large ships, stations, and subgrids. And we don't want it to detect the owner. We don't want to detect friendlies, and we don't want to detect neutrals. We only want to detect enemy ships. Then with that set up, we then have to just choose the detection range. So we'll increase all of these to 10 meters to make it a little bit more reliable. But the main thing is that the back extent is the front of the torpedo. So I'll set this to 30 to be quite safe. If you're playing in single player, then 20 or 25 meters for arming is good. If you're playing multiplayer and lag is a factor, then you'll probably want to increase this as much as possible. The closer it arms to the enemy ship, the less likely it is to be shot down. However, the sensor sometimes lags. So if the arming distance is too short, then sometimes the torpedo will hit the enemy ship without arming the warheads, and so it fails to detonate. And with the front extent, this is towards the back, and we don't want it detecting anything behind the torpedo, so we'll put that all the way down to the minimum. And finally, we'll go to Setup Actions, and we'll find the Arm Warheads timer block, and we'll set that to trigger now. We need to assign our thrusters. One of them will be an override thruster for pushing the torpedo away from the mothership. So we have to find one of these. In this case, I'll choose thruster 8. It's the last torpedo I built. And I'm going to rename that to override launch hydrogen thruster. And I'm going to set that to maximum. I'm going to make sure it's turned off. Then I'll make the thruster group. And I'm going to choose all the thrusters to put them into a group, but I will not include the override launch hydrogen thruster. And the last thing we need to finish our torpedo is to add 2 more timer blocks to make up the launch system. Next, we will name our timer blocks. The first one will be the launch timer block, and the next one will be the AI activation timer block. With the launch timer block, we can set up the actions here, and we want the small connector to disconnect. We want the merge block to turn off. We then want to find the override thruster, and we'll turn that on. Then we want to find our hydrogen tanks. I want to set stockpile to off so that fuel can flow into the engines. And finally, we want to start the timer for our AI activation timer block. We'll make sure we start that. We don't want to use trigger now there. Then for the AI activation block, I'm going to set our delay down to 2 seconds so the torpedo has enough time to clear away from the ship as the override thruster pushes it away. And for actions, after 2 seconds, we want the override engine to turn off, and we want the thruster group for general control to turn on. We then want the flight AI to turn on, and we want the AI behavior to turn on. Then we're going to do the same for the offensive AI, turning that on, and then turn the AI behavior on that as well. And finally, you want to turn the sensor on as well. And finally, some last minute configuration, just to double check, we want all of the thrusters to be turned off by default. We also want the override thruster to be off by default. We want the AI blocks to be powered off and also to have behavior off. Otherwise, they may interfere with AI on the mothership. And finally, we want the sensor to be turned off as well, so that it won't blow up our own ship. And of course, always double check that the warheads are not armed. Next, we'll make a test target just to check that the torpedo works. Picking a big wall of batteries, and then taking all those batteries and setting them all onto space parts so they can be targeted. So finally, let's get to testing to see if it can hit the target. So we'll just go straight in, go find the launch timer block, and hit trigger now. So the override thruster pushes it away from our ship, the AI turns on, and flies towards the target, and then misses beautifully. Then turns around for another go, flies back, and there it is. Close enough. After that, you'll want to copy and paste your torpedoes, attaching them to a grid for ease of use and replication, as well as linking them with connectors and merge blocks to a structure that we can attach to a large grid rotor at some point, as well as putting in a projector and then projecting out the image of the torpedoes that you want. You then want to go to your launch timer blocks and you want to set them up so that they have delays. So 1 second delay, 2 second delay, 3 second delay, and so forth. So they'll shoot out one by one and not crash into each other as they're flying around. And finally, set up a construction system with timer blocks. And you can start building your torpedoes. And then once these are built, we'll shoot them out and see how they go. 3 failed detonations so far, but overall, detonation is going well. And there we have it. There were some small hydrogen tanks in there, but as you can see, the damage is quite satisfying. One final consideration is how protected you want your warheads to be. If you stick the warheads out on the very front of the torpedo like this, they are more likely to detonate and will probably do slightly more damage. The more you armor the warheads, the less likely your torpedo is to be shot down. However, this will significantly reduce the actual damage that the warhead does on impact, as well as reducing the chance of a proper detonation. The best design is probably to have the 2 warheads at the front in terms of damage output. However, they will be slightly easier to shoot down. Once you have your torpedo printer complete, you can mess around with different styles, save them as blueprints. You can copy paste them and add them onto your ships, such as my work in progress missile destroyer that you see here, with 2 on each side. And that's it. So I wish you the best of luck and good luck with your torpedoes.